Get her off that stage. She's blind. She'll ruin the instrument." The words sliced through the hushed anticipation of the grand recital hall like shards of ice. Maestro Julian Thorne, renowned for his fiery talent and equally volcanic temper, stood imperiously by the gleaming concert grand. His perfectly tailored tuxedo somehow made him seem even more imposing. His pronouncement was directed at a young woman, Ilara Vance, who stood near the piano. Her slender fingers hovered just above the polished wood, her sightless eyes fixed on a point beyond the opulent surroundings. Laughter, a cruel ripple at first, then a wave of uncomfortable snickers, spread through the assembled patrons and critics. Thorne's students, some already seated in the front rows, were the loudest, their amusement a clear echo of their mentor's disdain. Ilara didn't flinch. Her posture remained unchanged, a quiet dignity in the face of public scorn. A worn wooden bird pendant, a small carving no bigger than her thumb, slipped from beneath the collar of her simple dress as she took a shallow breath. Thorne, basking in the spotlight, his pronouncements always drew, gestured dismissively. "Some people simply don't understand their limitations," he declared to the room, his voice dripping with condescension. "This isn't a place for charity cases or misguided ambitions. It's a temple of art." But they had just dismissed the wrong musician, mocked the wrong spirit. I wonder where you are watching this story from today, and if you've ever seen someone so utterly underestimated only to watch them redefine everything. Ilara's journey, from this moment of stinging humiliation to the breathtaking silence she would later command, reveals a profound truth about courage, the nature of genius, and the music that truly matters. Her story isn't just about notes on a page. It's about the melody of the human spirit, and it might just change how you listen to the world. Now, before we dive deeper into Ilara's incredible story, make sure you subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Ilara lived in a small attic apartment in the city's older quarter, a place where the sounds of life below, the rumble of trams, the distant call of street vendors, the laughter of children in the cobblestone courtyard, wove themselves into the fabric of her days. The room was sparsely furnished, a narrow bed, a small table, a single chair, and shelves overflowing, not with books in the traditional sense, but with braille scores and recordings collected over years. Her world was one of texture, sound, and an internal landscape rich with musical color. She had been blind since early childhood, a fever stealing her sight but gifting her with an almost preternatural sensitivity to the auditory world. Music wasn't just something she heard, it was something she felt, in the vibrations of the floorboards, in the resonance of the air, in the very beat of her own heart. Her first instrument had been an old, out-of-tune upright piano in the community center basement, a forgotten relic that became her sanctuary. She taught herself by listening to crackling radio broadcasts and worn-out records, her fingers finding the shapes of chords and melodies through touch and an almost painful intensity of concentration. Her parents, simple working folk, had marveled at her gift, but lacked the means or connections to nurture it in the conventional halls of musical academia. They did what they could, saving for a used braille music embosser and encouraging her quiet passion. Ilara never spoke of ambitions beyond playing for herself in the quiet of her room. The encounter with Maestro Thorne wasn't her first brush with the rigid expectations of the classical music world. She had once timidly inquired about lessons at a local conservatory, only to be gently but firmly told that their program wasn't equipped to handle a student with her particular challenges, a polite euphemism for their unwillingness to try. The world saw her blindness first, her talent a distant second, if at all. Yet, Ilara persisted, driven by an inner compulsion, a need to translate the music that lived within her into tangible sound. She found solace in the company of Mr. Abram, an elderly retired music librarian who volunteered at a dusty archive filled with forgotten compositions. He was a quiet man with kind eyes and an encyclopedic knowledge of music history. He never pitied Ilara. Instead, he saw the fierce intelligence and profound musicality that lay beneath her unassuming exterior. He would read to her from biographies of composers, describing their lives, their struggles, their triumphs, and sometimes he would guide her hands over rare tactile diagrams of orchestral layouts or instrument mechanics. "Music isn't just in the notes, Ilara," he'd say, his voice a soft rumble. "It's in the silence between them. It's in the story the composer is trying to tell. It's in the heart of the listener." He understood her unique connection to sound, her ability to perceive nuances others missed, to hear the emotional core of a piece with an almost painful clarity. He was the one who had discreetly arranged for Ilara to be present at the recital hall that day, not to perform, but simply to experience the acoustics of the magnificent instrument, hoping it might inspire her. Maestro Thorne's masterclass was an unexpected addition to the schedule, and his cruel outburst had shattered that quiet hope, or so it seemed. After the stinging dismissal in the recital hall, Ilara had retreated further into her music. Mr. Abram visited her a few days later, finding her not dejected, but fiercely focused, her fingers flying across the keys of her own small, worn keyboard, a piece of astonishing complexity and sorrow pouring forth. He listened in silence until she finished. "That was," he began, then paused, searching for words. "That was you, Ilara. That was your voice." She turned her face towards him, a faint blush on her cheeks. "It's just something I've been working on." The incident had left a scar, but it had also ignited a spark. Thorne's words, a dare echoing in her mind, had unintentionally pushed her beyond her quiet explorations. She began to compose more seriously, not just interpreting the works of others but giving form to the symphonies that raged and whispered within her. Her compositions were unconventional, defying easy categorization, weaving together classical structures with folk melodies and an improvisational freedom that would have horrified traditionalists. They were raw, deeply personal, and utterly unique. Mr. Abram became her silent champion. He began transcribing her compositions into standard notation, painstakingly translating her braille notes and verbal descriptions into a language the sighted world could understand. He spoke of a little-known competition, the Harmony of Tomorrow Prize, specifically designed to discover and promote unconventional new voices in music. "It's a long shot, Ilara," he admitted. "The judges are notoriously conservative. But your music deserves to be heard, not just by me." Ilara was hesitant. The memory of Thorne's scorn was still fresh. The thought of exposing her work to that kind of judgment again was terrifying. But Mr. Abram's quiet faith was a powerful counterweight. He didn't push. He simply left the application forms, printed in braille, on her table. Weeks passed. Ilara continued to compose, the music pouring out of her with an urgency she hadn't known before. She filled page after page with intricate patterns of raised dots, crafting soundscapes that were both heartbreakingly beautiful and fiercely defiant. One evening, she found the courage to complete the application, sending it off with a recording of her playing one of her own pieces, a haunting nocturne that seemed to capture the loneliness of the city at night and the resilience of the human heart. She didn't expect to hear anything back. The world of classical music was a fortress, and she was an outsider, without pedigree or patronage. Months later, a braille letter arrived. Ilara's fingers trembled as she traced the embossed characters. She had been selected as a finalist for the Harmony of Tomorrow Prize. The final round would be a public performance in the city's main concert hall, the very same venue where Maestro Thorne often held court and where he had so casually dismissed her. The news sent a jolt of both excitement and trepidation through her. Mr. Abram was overjoyed. "I knew it, Ilara. I knew they would hear the truth in your music." But as the date approached, Ilara's doubts grew. The other finalists were conservatory-trained prodigies with glowing resumes and influential teachers. She was a self-taught, blind musician from an attic apartment. Who was she to compete? Against them? The memory of Thorne's sneering face, his cutting words. "Some people simply don't understand their limitations," played on a loop in her mind. One afternoon, while practicing a particularly difficult passage, she faltered, her fingers stumbling on the keys. Frustration welled up, and she slammed her hands down, creating a dissonant crash. "I can't do this," she whispered, her voice tight with unshed tears. Mr. Abram, who had been listening quietly from his usual chair, put a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Maestro Thorne sees music as a weapon, Ilara, a way to dominate, to impress. He's forgotten that its true power lies in its ability to connect, to heal, to reveal the truth. What you have, he can never teach, and will never understand. Play your truth, Ilara. That's all anyone can ask." His words settled her somewhat. She returned to her practice, not with the aim of winning, but with the resolve to share her music honestly, authentically. The day of the competition arrived, clear and cold. The concert hall buzzed with an energy that was both exhilarating and intimidating. Backstage, Ilara could hear the murmur of the crowd, the tuning of the orchestra, the hushed whispers of the other finalists. She clutched her small wooden bird pendant, her fingers tracing its familiar smooth curves. Mr. Abram was by her side, a calm, steady presence in the whirlwind of nerves and excitement. When her name was called, a wave of near panic washed over her. For a moment she wanted to turn and flee, to retreat to the safety of her quiet room. But then she remembered Mr. Abram's words, "Play your truth." She took a deep breath and allowed him to guide her onto the stage. As she walked towards the piano, the silence in the hall was absolute. Every eye was on her, the blind girl, the unlikely finalist. A few titters could be heard from one section of the audience where she recognized the sharp profiles of some of Maestro Thorne's students. And then she saw him. Thorne himself, seated in the judges' panel, his expression a mixture of disdain and grudging curiosity. Her heart pounded, but her hands, as she found the familiar shape of the piano bench, were steady. She sat for a long moment, her head bowed. Not in prayer, but in a moment of intense inner focus, gathering herself, collecting the threads of her music. She thought of the sounds of her city, the rhythm of rain on her windowpane, the distant songs of hope and sorrow, the unwavering kindness of Mr. Abram. She thought of the darkness that was her constant companion, and the vibrant world of sound it had opened to her. And then she lifted her hands. Instead of a thunderous opening or a display of technical pyrotechnics, Ilara began with a single, soft note, a bell tolling in a vast, empty space. It hung in the air, fragile yet resonant, before being joined by a second, and then a third, creating a melody of almost unbearable tenderness. The piece was one of her own compositions, an untitled tone poem that moved from quiet introspection to passages of soaring lyrical beauty and moments of raw, untamed grief. It wasn't conventionally structured. It followed an emotional logic, a narrative arc that spoke of struggle, resilience, and the enduring power of the human spirit. Her technique was unconventional, her phrasing unique, born not of conservatory training but of a deep intuitive understanding of the music's emotional core. She played with her entire body, swaying gently, her face a mask of serene concentration. But her fingers danced across the keys with a precision and passion that was breathtaking. She didn't need to see the instrument. She and the piano were one entity, breathing together, creating a sound that was both ancient and utterly new. As the music unfolded, a profound stillness settled over the concert hall. The initial skepticism and whispered comments died away, replaced by a rapt attention. The judges leaned forward, their expression shifting from critical assessment to something akin to awe. Maestro Thorne sat rigid, his face unreadable, but his knuckles were white where he gripped the arms of his chair. He had expected an amateur, a novelty. He was hearing a revelation. Ilara's music painted landscapes of sound, intricate tapestries woven from joy and sorrow, hope and despair. It spoke of the beauty found in broken things, of the light that can only be seen in darkness. There were moments of breathtaking virtuosity, passages where her fingers flew across the keyboard with astonishing speed and accuracy. But these were never mere displays of skill. They were integral to the emotional arc of the piece, a raw cry of defiance or a soaring flight of ecstasy. As the piece neared its conclusion, The melody returned to the simple, haunting theme with which it had begun, but now it was imbued with a sense of peace, a quiet strength earned through struggle. The final notes faded into silence, a silence so profound it seemed to hold the collective breath of everyone in the room. For a long moment, no one moved, no one spoke. It was as if the world itself had paused to listen. Then, a single sob broke the stillness, followed by another. And then, the applause began, not a polite ripple, but a thunderous roar, a wave of sound that washed over Ilara in an overwhelming tide. People leaped to their feet, their faces wet with tears, shouting her name, whistling, cheering. The ovation went on, a release of pent-up emotion, a recognition of something truly extraordinary. Ilara remained seated at the piano, her head bowed, her shoulders trembling slightly. Mr. Abram gently helped her to her feet and guided her forward to acknowledge the deafening applause. She couldn't see the faces in the crowd, but she could feel their energy, their gratitude, their connection. The other judges were on their feet, clapping enthusiastically, their faces alight with excitement. Only Maestro Thorne remained seated, his expression a complex mixture of shock, disbelief, and something that looked almost like pain. As the applause finally began to subside, the head of the judging panel stepped forward, his voice thick with emotion. "In all my years," he said, his voice amplified by the microphone, "I have never witnessed a performance of such profound honesty and breathtaking originality. Miss Ilara Vance, you have not just played music, you have reminded us what music is for." The decision was unanimous. Ilara Vance was awarded the Harmony of Tomorrow Prize. But more than the prize, more than the recognition, it was the look on Mr. Abram's face when he hugged her backstage, his eyes shining with tears of pride, that Ilara would cherish the most. Later that evening, Maestro Thorne approached her, as she was quietly leaving the concert hall. He looked older, somehow, diminished, his usual arrogance replaced by a weary humility. "Miss Vance," he said, his voice uncharacteristically subdued, I owe you an apology. What you did tonight, what you played, it was—" He struggled for words. "It was truth. I had forgotten what that sounded like." Ilara simply nodded, a small smile touching her lips. "Music remembers, Maestro, even when we forget." Her victory sent ripples through the music world. Critics hailed her as a visionary, a new voice that defied categorization. Conservatories that had once dismissed her now clamored to offer her guest lectureships and residencies. She received invitations to perform in concert halls around the globe. But Ilara remained grounded. She continued to live in her small attic apartment to compose her unique brand of music and to find joy in the simple sounds of her city. Her greatest satisfaction came not from the accolades, but from the letters she received from other aspiring musicians who had been told they didn't fit the mold, who had been discouraged because of their background, their disability, or their unconventional approach. Her story became a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of perseverance, and the extraordinary beauty that can be found when one dares to play their own truth. She often thought of Maestro Thorne's words, "And get her off that stage, she's blind," and how they had inadvertently set her on this path. She had been silenced that day, but her music, her true voice, had found a way to not only speak, but to roar, silencing the doubters and awakening the hearts of listeners around the world. She proved that true vision isn't about what you see with your eyes, but what you feel in your soul, and what you have the courage to share with the world. Have you ever been profoundly moved by a piece of music, or an artist who defied all expectations? Ilara's story is a powerful reminder that talent can blossom in the most unexpected places, and that sometimes the greatest voices are the ones we almost miss. If her journey inspired you, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel for more stories that lift the spirit, and share this with someone who might need a reminder of their own strength. And tell us in the comments, what song or artist has deeply touched your life? We believe in the power of shared stories and the music that connects us all. Thank you for watching, and remember to keep listening with an open heart.